Am I saying your name right yet?
I didn't even hear how you pronounced it. I
Great.
must have zoned out.
That means it didn't trigger anything, and I'm saying it right. Excellent.
Okay.
So, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Belgariad and Beyond. We're up to chapter 5 of Porn of Prophecy this week. Hey Alysia.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be back to record another episode.
Yes, although the listener won't know this because, every week you will be hearing an episode. It's been a couple of weeks since we recorded, and so, life just kind of gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah, that's okay. Just like you said, it's not going to be any different to the listeners because these are batch recorded so that we make sure
Yes.
we have them for you.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So, how was your week, my darling?
It was interesting.
Tell me. How was your cup this week?
Yeah, so even the week before this, since it's been 2 weeks, it was both weeks, I would say it was like sweetly spiced, if that's possible. Because I had a lot of stuff happen in my business. A lot of stuff, positive things are going on. Like I'm seeing some great growth and movement. Just started, they hired me to help them write their book, 2 new people. So that's super exciting. And then
I just grinned off both sides of my face just then.
Yeah, I'm so excited to start. One's going to start at the end of November, the other one at the end of December. So it's really going to be really special. But the other thing is I discovered first it was the movie A Wrinkle in Time. And then of course I went immediately and got the book because the movie changed my life. It was just like the perfect timing. I know this story's been around I looked it up since like 1962 or something. And it seems like I come into these things super late, but they always come at the right time.
Well, I was just about to say, you're not late at all. You are right on time. You are right on your own schedule. It's all perfect.
Yeah, because had I read this as a child or at any other point, it probably wouldn't have registered like it did this time. So that's been a huge thing for me, everything. And then I did have like a strange experience last week that kind of scared me for a minute, but then after I recovered from it, it was almost like, yeah, that was kind of my like last push through to break past everything how I hold myself back. And so now, since that time, I've really been feeling this forward movement. So it's been really great.
That's fantastic. It's so interesting that's what you're talking about, that last push through of like limiting beliefs about your work and around your creative career and it was only when we were having our little pre-show, discussion that I realized that's exactly where I am too. Like I realized it, of course, in my head, but like saying this stuff out loud just kind of makes it real for me anyway. And so you were so sweetly spiced, but I've had a really salty kind of potion in my cup for the same reasons. But my cup has collected a lot of tears this last fortnight in my process of like release and letting go and, working through these limiting beliefs. And whilst you have pushed through and, gotten into that sweet stuff, I'm still it's like I'm pushing against the inside of a balloon that just won't give. And I am still I still have that fear, so I'm not ready to like dig my fingernails in and just pop the sucker.
Right.
Yeah. But tonight won't be when this goes out, but tonight is Samhain. And I am gonna burn some limiting beliefs. Literally burn them. Literally set fire to pieces of paper and burn the suckers. That's happening tonight.
Yeah, you'll have to let us know how that goes next week.
I will.
How you feel after that.
Yeah, I don't have any expectations, which I think is healthy. But I'm dealing with all of the big emotions, like all of the big emotions that fuel my fears and keep me stuck in that place. You know, shame, and like shame seems to be the last one that comes up for me that I admit. You know, kind of, you know, I'm sad, or I feel guilty about this, or whatever. And of course, feelings are just feelings, and thoughts are just thoughts. They're not me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I let myself feel them, and which I have been doing lately, then I can kind of get through them. I don't have to keep feeling it over and over and over again. I can like move on to the next thing. And the last thing always seems to be shame. And so this thing happened tonight, and I'm kind of just, I was trying to work out what it was I was feeling. It wasn't nice. I didn't like it. Didn't want to be in it, but I made myself stay there. And I'm like, wow, I think I feel ashamed. So that's been a very interesting evening.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it reminds me a lot of how they talk about tessering in the A Wrinkle in Time story, right? They call tessering basically like traveling through the universe using your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're describing like pushing up against a balloon that won't pop, is exactly like how, at least in the movie, in the book it's described a little bit different, but in the movie you literally see it. She's trying to tester this girl because she's the one who has still very much run by her mind, right? Where all the rest are, oh, this is so fun and easy and it's amazing. And but when you see her try to test her, it's like she's pressing up against this film of, it looks a lot like a balloon.
Oh wow, so I literally described like what you read, because I haven't read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it reminds me a lot of that. Like, you got to kind of release whatever that is, because then you see, once you do, you can easily just move through it. And it's actually very, the word one of the misses uses is glorious. Like,
I love that word. That's a great word.
She's like, why aren't you glorious? Everybody's glorious except you. We just tested. You should be glorious. And it's like,
wow.
It reminds me a lot of that. Like, just by the end of it, the young girl does come into her true self and like let go of that stuff. And then testering is glorious for her, but it's trying to work through it at first. You got to not even break through it, but like release it so that it just opens.
Great language. And I'm glad that we're talking about this chapter tonight, because it ties into all of this stuff that it feels like the right chapter to be on, because it feels like I'm just on the brink of stuff. And we'll get into it later in our chapter discussion. Mm-hmm. Why I feel like that ties in, but yeah. So, that sounds like a great book, and I'm definitely putting it on my reading list.
Yeah, you should. It is, I think, a children's book, but there's so much in there for adults to get out of this.
A good children's book is for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one of them. Just like Harry Potter, this is one of them. Cool. And it's a quintet, so there's 5 of them to enjoy.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. All right.
So
tell us about the chapter.
Belgariad. Yeah, chapter 5. Okay, so I'm gonna do my best. It's been 2 weeks since I read this, but I did refresh myself. But chapter 5 is, Mr. Wolf comes back like right at the beginning. He's just there all of a sudden. It's 5 years later. And I guess it was 1 or 2 chapters ago we learned about Brill, who's like a new farm hand or something like that. So we figure out something's kind of weird with him, and Mr. Wolf then also tells another really good story to people that gets some controversy going. And then, of course, the chapter ends with them leaving Faldor's farm behind, going into the unknown under the moonlight. It was so much. I'm like, this totally has Lord of the Rings vibe right now. And so I loved it.
Yay! You can't, I'm doing a little chair dance because, yay, start of the adventure.
Yeah, so true. And then let's check. What did I predict last week? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Was I accurate or am I way off?
Let's have a look. Prediction. I think Garion will get curious about the mark on his hand and start looking for answers.
Yeah, that was pretty off.
Nope.
Yeah, not even close.
But that's
okay.
It was a very good prediction.
So the start of the chapter, Mr. Wolf comes back.
Yeah.
And we do see it's 5 years later, so that makes Garion now about a teenager, right?
He's 14 now.
Right. And so we immediately see Mr. Wolf go find Aunt Pole, right? And then Garion is supposed to go pick carrots for her, but instead stays to eavesdrop on what they're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, from the start of the chapter, it's starting to set a different tone, like a more serious tone. Like even the way that Mr. Wolf comes in and he's kind of, Garion notices that he he's not lighthearted. He's got really kind of serious face, and as you say, immediately wants to go to talk to Aunt Pollen, but Garion says, maybe now's not a good idea because she's in a really bad mood. And he's like, well, it doesn't matter. I still got to talk to her. So it's like everything's like, you can sort of sense the coming something, substantial is about to happen. So from the start of the chapter.
Yeah, all the little signs of just Garion observing Mr. Wolf, you kind of do get that vibe, like something's changed with him.
Yeah.
And he's also obviously got something weighing him down. And then even as he goes in to talk to Aunt Pole, he starts saying some things
Did you catch the Garion sees him make some funny gestures with his hands or something, or he does something weird with his hands, and Aunt Pole kind of reacts to that. Did you catch that?
I don't remember it at this point. I might have when I read it, but right now I do not. Is it right at the beginning?
So they sort of start talking and then they stop, and Aunt Pole sends Garion away to dig for carrots.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that part.
And Garion. I love the way that the author describes Garion as the way that he makes his decision to stay and eavesdrop. Usually when he gets sent away, it involves him rather particularly, and so I want to know what this is all about.
Yeah, and I found that part here. It says that the wolf has said, then he did a strange thing. His fingers traced an intricate little design in the air in front of his chest. Garion was quite sure that he was not intended to see those gestures. And Aunt Pole's reaction.
Can you remember being in that mind when you were a child, overhearing or seeing or something, or walking into an adult conversation and the conversation just kind of stopping, or realizing that you're in the room and overhearing what they're talking about?
All the time. And even now, being the parent, my daughter, she senses when me and her dad are having a discussion that's more private, because she will come in and just sit there.
Yeah.
And we're like, can you go watch your show for a minute? I'll be there. I just want to stay here though.
Yeah.
Because she knows there's a conversation going on that's probably not the most pleasant, you know, if we're disagreeing or something. So yeah, it's like that. And it is the kid's intuition of like, there's something here that I think I would benefit from hearing.
Yeah, so he stays and listens, and they talk about something being lost or missing, and how
Mr.
Wolf can follow it even.
Yeah, he's following the trail, like she asks him.
Yeah.
And he says something about she says he won't leave you a trail, and Wolf says he doesn't have to. The thing itself will make itself known to me, will make its trail known to me.
Okay, so someone's got something and Wolf can follow it.
Mm-hmm.
And so during this conversation, they decide that like Wolf wants Aunt Pol to go with him, like insists upon it. And she's like, well, if I go, Garion goes, which makes Garion almost pee himself with excitement outside the door where he's listening. And Wolf's like, no. And then kind of laughs at the reason that Aunt Pol gives for wanting to take him along, you know.
Right. Because she's still on the fact that she caught him kissing Zubret.
Yeah.
Right.
And Wolf just thinks that's funny.
Yeah. It's because I think she exaggerates it to the point of they're going to run off and get married and she'll end up pregnant or something like that.
Well, I don't think it's such an exaggeration. Like, considering, you know.
Well, if they have nothing else better to do, then, you know.
You know, if Aunt Pol's not there, then, you know.
That's what teenagers do.
Yeah. So, but the way that they talk about it, you know, is Pol's like, yes, and so what? We've got to wait another 1,000 years for the conditions to be right again. So that, you know, hello, something's going on with Garion right in the center of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing too is that the Aunt Pol asking the wolf, like, she's like asking, well, where is he going to take it? So it's kind of like, well, where, like, who is taking what and where? Like, there's no hint to what she's talking about. She obviously knows, and Wolf knows. So
yeah, there's no hint at all at the moment. It's just that's all the clue we get. But they pack everything up. And then Aunt Pol catches Garion getting very excited. Garion loses himself in the moment, thinking adventure, and forgets that he's not supposed to be outside the door. And then Aunt Pol's like, where are the bloody carrots, Garion?
Right. And then from there, I think it goes right into the Mr. Wolf telling another story, right? The story of the three adventurers.
I think it goes... So after that, Garion gets back from getting the carrots and sees Aunt Pol go upstairs to talk to Farmer Faldor, and he is going to go and eavesdrop again and listen to their conversation, but he sees Brill go up, well, who he later realizes is Brill after he smells him, because Brill's very stinky. And yeah, so then he sees Aunt Pol and Farmer Faldor come down, and they're kind of talking about Aunt Pol going, and then he kind of feels like a bit, talking of shame, a little bit ashamed of himself for, you know, doing the same thing that Brill's doing, but Brill's making it seem like in his head, Garion's trying to justify it. Oh, he's probably just curious like me, probably just curious. Nothing sinister going on here at all.
Right. But he has much more of a creepy vibe about it than Garion does.
Oh, yes. And he's stinky. Yeah.
Right. There's something just off about him from the beginning when he arrived at the farm.
Yes. And then we go into the story in the at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird. Every time I read it, I still think it's weird. That story and the way that Brill reacts. Like, yeah, okay, it's a creepy story, and I can sort of see the sense of the moral that Faldor puts on it, and you know, but I just think it still confuses me. It's like one of those things that makes perfect sense in your head as an author when you're writing it, but then someone else reads it and has no bloody idea what you're talking about.
You mean like in the context of the whole story, or do you just mean the story itself?
No, I mean the way Brill reacts to it, like, because he's so like, offended.
Okay.
I don't understand, and I never have understood, and I know the whole story, like how,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I still don't, even with years of hindsight, understand why he's so friggin' offended.
I mean, maybe it's just simply that he's never seen a ghost, like he said. So he
Yeah,
takes
okay.
offense.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, well, if we think about it later on, when we have more context, maybe we'll come back to it, but probably not, because it's a little bit inconsequential at this point. But it's just, yeah, I just find that bit a bit like, what?
I kind of liked the story itself though, like the idea, like I could visualize it real clearly. It reminded me of some other tales you hear growing up as a child, like I forget what they're called now, the urban legends type thing.
And fables, like it's all about greed and, you know, going after the gold in another country and the spirits of the dead people in that country, protecting the gold and driving the people mad, and that's the whole kind of gist of the story, that people died because they were greedy.
It reminds me, I just thought of this, of in Harry Potter with when he finds out the story of the three brothers and with the cloak and the stone and the wand.
Yes.
How they each ended up.
That was a story of greed as well. Yeah.
It's the same. That's, I think, why I was like, this sounds familiar, because I visualize it now.
Yeah.
Because in the movie they like depict the story like a little storybook. So I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's like a puppet show, like a shadow puppet show or something.
Yeah, that's what it was reminding me of.
Ah, okay. And so I'm not sure whether the whole Brill's reaction was just a vehicle to draw attention to him as a character in the story, so that, you know, it sort of drew him into the story. You know,
I think that could be. I think that could very well be it.
So I think it's like maybe that's why it just feels like it doesn't quite make as much sense as maybe it could.
Yeah, it's because it's in the scene right after that Garion decides to confess to Aunt Pole that he saw Brill like spying on her.
Yeah, which makes Wolf curious and goes, oh, who is this guy? Maybe we should check him out. And oh, it's so funny. I love the way that he transforms into this little kitty paws character. Like I imagine this cat burglar kind of character, you know, sneaking along with the little tippy toes. Because that's kind of the vibe that the story gives off then, that Wolf transforms into this really sneaky, almost, and you can almost sort of sense the like, ooh, this is fun. Like he's really enjoying the whole kind of sneaky bit of it.
Yeah. Yeah, he gets almost like playful about it, right?
Yes.
So they like go into the place where they think he's hiding out, and
everything's just messed up. So Garion, and I love how it switches to Garion then, and Garion can tell that it's not just someone gone, it's someone gone in a hurry because everything's messy, and he can sort of, maybe his sense of adventure is starting to switch on, and the way that the way that Wolf gets into the room, but we can talk about that in the magic bit, okay?
Right. Yeah, that I loved that part. And so like they end up finding him in the stables, right?
Yeah. So they go to the stables and Brill's packing up and getting ready to go. And Brill's like, I'll just bugger off and get out of my way. What do you think you're doing? And Wolf's sort of braver than an old, potentially less powerful old man might be when confronted with a nasty character. Seems very confident.
Yeah. Like this is a time where Garion too, you see he has a heroic side, because he actually pulls his little knife from his belt and tries to defend Mr. Wolf, right? So
and it sort of talks again about like, described similarly to when he was whacked on the head by his friend when they were sword fighting, and he started sort of doing things, you know, without volition, like just something else took over him. It's like this sudden surge of valor, you know, jumping in front of him. Like and it's only just a tiny little moment in the text, you know, the surge that sort of overtook him. And he stepped in front of Mr. Wolf. Because Brill at this point has his rusty old sword out. And so you can just sort of see this teenager with this little dagger, you know?
Yeah. Again, it's like the Hobbit with his little dagger.
Yeah.
There, thinking he's this big, bad, tough guy because he's got his sword in his hand, but he's so tiny, and the sword's so tiny, and it's like, you're really not going to do that much damage with it, but it's about like the energy they take on when they're in that space. You know, I think of Merry and Pippin when they're allowing Frodo to escape from the orcs, and they see this horde of orcs coming toward them, and they're like, go, we'll distract them, and the two little guys just jump out in front of all of them, like knowing there's no chance, but they still have that valor in them to do it. And it's just like Gary, and here he's probably the weakest one in the room, at least right now, and yet here he is standing in front of Mr. Wolf to protect him.
I don't think Garion thought much about anything, but he's very brave. He's very brave.
Yeah.
And then Dernick shows up and knocks the sword out of Brill's hand with an ox yoke, like a thing that you sit over the shoulders of an ox, and when he's pulling a cart, like a big, you can imagine how strong Dernick is to like just be swinging something like that around.
Yeah.
And then swings it again and knocks Brill over, arse over bum. No, arse over the other thing. What do I say? Arse over tit. Knocks him over. Knocks the wind out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And
then they leave him tied up there.
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah. So Wolf says tie him up. Make him secure, tie him up, leave him for someone to find. And then Dernick's like, well, we've got to tell Faldor because, you know, weapons have been drawn. This is not just a little thing. And Wolf's like, no, look, we just have to go. We have to go. And then they go back to the kitchen to Aunt Pol and talk about leaving.
Right. And that's the moment that Dernick says, I'm coming with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he's like, Aunt Pol's kind of, I feel like, at least I interpreted, she was kind of mocking him a bit of like, oh, you're going to protect us or something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, he probably really can, but she almost like was diminishing that.
Well, it sort of says something about her belief in her ability to protect herself, and like she doesn't need anybody.
Yeah, because he says here, she's like, you, Dernick, you mean to protect us? And he said, I'm sorry, Mistress Pole, I will not permit you to go unescorted. So that's when she gets offended. She's like, you will not permit?
Yes.
She's like, nobody permits me to do anything.
So yeah, but I love that. Like Dernick's just so steady and solid, and like he's not a wimp. So he totally could protect them. Like if we're talking about physical danger, he totally could protect them. He's big and strong enough. It's not just anyone. He's going for Mistress Pole.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get that sense.
Yeah, because they hinted at that kind of little of a romance between them.
Yeah, I mean,
really
I don't think there's a romance.
Really subtle.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, there's like I'm pretty sure that Dernick's like got that crush going on.
Right. More of a one-sided thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then it ends and they're on their way, and you get the sense that Garion's feeling already a little bit of uneasiness by simple comment of, you know, outside of the walls of the village, it's a lot colder.
And darker.
Even with the moon shining on their pathway, it's still it's
scary. That last kind of, you know, gets to the top of the hill and looks back at the farm and has that last kind of full of, what about Zibret, you know? And then he bursts through his bubble and he just like off he goes into the darkness. There's no, he just pops the balloon and gets going.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what's next.
So that will be good.
So on to the magic then. What magic stood out for you?
Well, for me, I really like, there's a moment when Wolf and Garion are in Brill's room, and when they're looking for him before they go to the barn, and Wolf lights a taper and it lights up his face, and Garion sees him get really still and his face gets really still, and it's described as though his mind was searching for something. And then Wolf says, let's go to the barn, and they go to the barn, and I just really, really like that idea of journeying with your mind to other places,
right?
Expanding your senses to reach out to what's around you, and I really love that kind of magic, so that's my pick.
That's a good one. And I completely kind of skimmed over that. I didn't really pick up on that part, so I'm glad you pointed it out.
Well, I'm just so loving all of these little things. Like, of course I know that they're there, but when I typically read the series now, I read it so fast because I know the story so well that I don't take the time to enjoy the details. And this time, because I'm reading it with you, I'm really reading every word and absorbing every comma and nuance, and just I'm really enjoying the experience. So I'm so glad that I get to do this with you.
Yeah, it is nice when you kind of have that limit where it's only one chapter for the week. That's it. And these chapters are really manageable. They're pretty short. So you can really take your time with it and still have plenty of time left over.
It's so good for me just to slow down. It's so healthy and nourishing for me.
Yeah.
I've lots of people. What's your magical pick?
Mine is in the same scene when it's a kind of the combination where Wolf does open the latch to the door to Brill's room without even touching it. It just kind of mentions he does a movement, I think, with his hand, and then the latch opens. And then too with the lighting the fire, he actually did kind of just scratch it on something and the fire ignited. But just that whole little moment right there was really kind of I've always been intrigued by where you can just kind of move things with your hands, or make stuff happen without having to get up. And
so interesting, the different parts of the different magic that we notice because of our own filters and the way that we, the things that stand out to us. I love that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. All right, so what about this chapter is relating to your own life right now?
Okay, so, as I kind of alluded to when I talked about Garion pushing through his balloon and keeping going, right at the end of the chapter, you sort of, there's this sense through the whole chapter of building up something important's coming, and it's a little bit more serious, a little bit more there's a little bit more gravitas going on there. And then right at the end of the chapter, they're off out into the darkness. And I just feel like that this last 2 weeks has been me with this building up, a little bit heavier, a little bit serious. And I'm right on that edge now on the brink, my forehead pushed right up against the inside of the balloon. And I'm just, I don't know what happens next. So I'm like Garion at the end of the chapter. I don't know what comes next, but it's exciting and a little bit scary.
Yeah, that's a special one. We'll definitely follow up with that one as it comes to you,
Yeah, well, I'll be here next week, guys. What's yours for this chapter?
Okay. Mine, I was trying to find something else because I'm I don't know if I'm quite ready to let people know that I have this super nerdy side. I mean, I guess it's probably already known. I don't really
sorry, I think the secret's out.
But this pushes it over the edge, right? Okay. But for me, it was and that's why I really liked the story that Wolf tells about the three adventurers going, and one, they jump off the cliff, one faces and gets broken into pieces and eaten by a ghost, because I used to play this game called The Lord of the Rings Online. And actually, yeah, that's not even what I wrote, but this is what was in my head, and I must have changed it up. This is the truth of it. This is the truth of it. So I'm gonna be honest.
Good.
So I used to play Lord of the Rings Online, which is gaming, what do you call it? I don't remember what they're called anymore. The MMORPG. And this was when I was younger. I didn't have kids yet. I still lived with my parents. So I had a lot of free time on my hands, like going to college, and I would spend hours in this game. But there was this one area of the game that it had that very haunted feel. There were like ghosts floating everywhere, and you had to like stay away from them. You could hear the weird sounds kind of whistling through the wind, and it just really reminded me of going on quests with people, like, other players in the game, and getting lost in that like area of kind of that stormy night and adventure of like, ooh, what we got to go battle this thing in order to not die, right? So it just reminded me of that.
Cool. That's very cool. Okay.
So, now we're already on to the book, Prophecy Speaks.
And I'm like, I had a really specific question that I wanted to ask Prophecy this week, and I've conveniently forgotten what that is.
Yeah, I have to write that stuff down, or it'll be gone in 2 minutes after I thought of it.
I think I deliberately didn't write it down because it was the scary thing. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. And I'm probably going to find out anyway. Okay, I'm using my trusty Journey to the Dark Goddess, How to Return to Your Soul by Jane Meredith, which is amazing. And there's so much wisdom in it, and I think it might be almost time for me to give it a good thorough reading again. And so this is a really big night for me. And I'm getting quite emotional and leading into the next week. And so I would like something to support me through this big, huge final letting go and carry me through to next time. So let's just... yeah. Before you move on to the next stage of this journey, to meet the Dark Goddess and the next part of this book, take some time to make a map of your descent. Often the descent itself is the most emotionally charged of all the stages of a journey to the underworld. So distilling what you have learned into some form of map is invaluable. You might want to make this part of your map in 7 distinct stages, mirroring the 7 gates, 7 verses of a song, or an actual map with 7 gateways on it. Or you might choose to emphasize other aspects of descending.
Wow. I mean, that literally just said on the next stage.
So I'm just gonna get my little bookmarks and they're marked. I'll just be looking at that when we finish our show.
I mean, do you want to go into a little bit more on it, or do you think that pretty much explained it?
Well, I think that was fairly straightforward and felt like a literal description of what to do.
Yeah, that did. It sounded like direct guidance right there.
So I have my direct instructions. I will report back next week.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, my book, of course, had to be A Wrinkle in Time this week. And I'm going to butcher the author's last name, but her first name is Madeline. And her last name is French. I'm not even going to attempt it. But if you just Google A Wrinkle in Time, you'll find the book. So let's see. I guess mine is going to be about just, continuing to go down my journey in this new state of being. Because I've come to a lot of realizations right now, and I just don't want to ever go backwards. I want to stay here and only move forward. So let's see. Okay. Says Charles Wallace looked troubled. I don't think it's that. It's being able to understand a sort of language. Like sometimes if I concentrate very hard, I can understand the wind talking through the trees. you tell me you see sort of inadvertently. That's a good word, isn't it? I got a mother to look it up in the dictionary for me this morning. I really must learn to read, except I'm afraid it'll make it awfully hard for me in school next year. Okay. He goes on, but I think the first part was the most important. Okay. Just talking about like Charles Wallace is like the little brother in the story, and he's the one that's like the most in tuned to this whole, tessering and the misses, who are like these beings of the universe that he's communicating with far long before anybody else knows about him. And so,
yeah.
And so here he's talking to his sister, who is the one that's really has difficulty with all of this. And he's explaining to her about being able to like hear her thoughts or know what she's thinking without her having to tell him. And so being able to understand a sort of language, like sometimes I concentrate very hard, I can understand the wind talking in the trees. To me, that tells me that the answers are always there for you to like absorb. They may not always come to you in the tangible ways that you're used to them. And that's something I've been opening up a lot too, and just getting really in tune to listening to the universe and to God and to, whatever else is communicating to me.
So that makes perfect sense for you.
Yeah. And so the fact that it was Charles Wallace of all the characters that I found on the page is, I think, a sign in itself of
excellent
what's coming.
Oh, I love this. This is seriously my favorite part of the show.
Yeah, mine too. A little selfishly, I admit, but
no
I think
way.
It's beneficial for everyone listening. And
absolutely. Everyone can do, everyone, get your book, do your prophecy, let us know what it is. This is good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to hear from you and share it with us, and absolutely. We can create a community around this. So I need to predict the next chapter, but we also need a hashtag. So I don't know.
Okay, well, think of a hashtag just to identify this episode, but what's your prediction?
All right, so I think that Garion is going to get to know Mr. Wolf a lot better now that they're kind of secluded on this dirt road, and I have a feeling he's going to just kind of be pulled towards Mr. Wolf, just like the energy is going to be like wafting him over there. And that I think they're going to also face their real first threat, like where they're actually in danger. Okay. Like something's going to happen.
Okay, cool. Well, I can't wait to find out. So let's think of hashtag for this episode.
Yeah, let's brainstorm.
Ghosts and gold, or greedy ghosts, or because that was the story that Mr. Wolf told. Or we could use carrots. I kind of like that one.
Carrots, yeah.
Carrots. Okay, so
picking carrots.
Okay, darling listener, if you have made it all the way to the end of this episode, we would love it if you would do your own prophecy reading from a book and share it with us on social media, hashtag carrots. I'll put all the links to our social media sites in the show notes, so you can just click on whatever your favorite one is and find Belgariad and beyond on that platform. So you don't need to remember anything, just look in the show notes. But for everything else that I do, you can find me at goddesskindled.com. I've got lots of links and free stuff and what have you in there, so you can catch up with me there. And Alysia?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me or anything I'm doing, it's at alysiaseymour.com. And I look forward to hearing from anybody and being back next week with you guys.
Yeah. So I'll report back on my Underworld journey next week.
Yep, look forward to it.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.
Cool.
Yeah.
Dunsky.